Okay, today we're going to deal with the whole issue of freedom. As you know, there are many blacks that have been fighting for this so-called freedom for quite a long time. And one of the reasons that they have a difficulty achieving that freedom is because of all of the misconceptions that have been told to them, taught to them, and bred into them about freedom. So we're just going to go through a few of the misconceptions so that there is no question about what freedoms you actually have. And we're going to start off by telling you the only freedom that you have. There is only one freedom that you have, and that is the freedom of choice. Let me say that again for those who didn't hear me. There is only one freedom that you actually have, and that is the freedom of choice. Now, I'm going to break it down for you so you understand. So the best way to break it down for you is to take something that you already are familiar with. For example, white folks' Constitution. Their Constitution talks about all of these different freedoms that whites had. Now, I hear a lot of black people talk about the Constitution, but white people's Constitution, and you guys know this, white people's Constitution have nothing to do with you. When the white slave owners that were slaughtering people to take over this land, when they took over this northern continent, they established a white constitution, completely separate from anything that has to do anything with nature, or anything that has to do anything with the laws of God, or all these different things that I hear you guys talk about. As they took over these different regions in all of the 7 continents, there were all of these white constitutions that were written for white people. And black people know that they were written for white people. They were written by white people for white people. And it's amazing how many black people actually talk about the Constitution as if they really, really believe that these white so-called founding fathers of these different white governments on all 7 continents was speaking of black people in any way, shape, or form. Okay, so know that black people are not part of these constitutions that we're about to deal with. But let's take the Constitution of somewhere like the northern continent, United States. You had actual white males that got together and decided all of these different freedoms that whites would now have, now that they have broken away from their parents and grandparents in Britain. So they said, well, their parents and grandparents wouldn't let them do all these different things. So in the new country that they're forming, in the land that they just took from a bunch of people, they're going to do all of the things that their parents and grandparents in Britain wouldn't let them do. And so they set up this constitution with all of these rights. Now, we're going to establish whether or not they actually meant for whites to really have those rights. For example, they have a right to freedom of religion. Now, there are many people that think that there is a right to your freedom of religion, but these so-called founding fathers had no intentions of whites actually being able to freely practice whatever religion that they wanted to practice. The religion that the Constitution was based on was the King James Christianity that existed and that they brought over with them at the time. So for them to even put the right to freedom of religion in there was just something to put in to make it sound good. But the truth is that the only religion that you were able to freely practice or engage in is Christianity, and the King James Version of that Christianity. Okay, anything else you were condemned, you were killed, you were, ostracized, whatever the situation. Now, when you're talking about freedom, to help you understand, freedom is something that you're able to do without consequences. Okay, that's what freedom actually is. When you talk about freedom of speech means you're able to say what you want to say without consequences. Now, y'all know you do not have freedom of speech. You are free to say what you want to say as long as you are willing to take whatever consequences there are, good or bad. That's what you're under. Okay, and as for black people, they had no freedom at the time of these constitutions to say what they wanted to say anyway. Okay, without serious and severe consequences. So, when you talk about freedom, I need you guys to stop fantasizing about the different freedoms that you think you have. I want you to stop fantasizing about your inclusion into white folks' constitution. Now, it doesn't mean you can't use that constitution for your reparations fights. Yes, by all means, there are plenty of things in there that you are able to use in regards to your reparations fights. But do not allow yourself to be delusional and start believing that these constitutions had anything whatsoever to do with you, that these rights had anything whatsoever to do with you. Even when they did amendments and they, according to them, included you in their constitution, they made sure that it was clear to you that they weren't including you, they were including people like you. Okay, so they didn't say that now blacks or Negroes or former slaves would now have the same rights as anyone else. They simply put in there that anyone born in this land, anyone born in this country, anyone born in this nation would now have these particular rights. And they also put an addendum in there, or an asterisk, if you will, that says that you were, still didn't name you, as a Negro or a former slave, but they said that those that were enslaved, later on you had Lincoln that said those that were enslaved, not in the North, those that were enslaved in the Confederate territories, in the Confederate areas, were now free, except if you are in the penal institution. So now what has to happen? If you want to continue slavery, then you must stop with the regular plantations, and you must now set up a separate system for enslaving these Negroes. That's basically what it meant, and he did it in an effort to try and cripple the Confederates, and it worked. Okay, but blacks have become delusional with things like Juneteenth and all these different situations, into thinking that this Lincoln person actually felt so much guilt and so much compassion for the Negro people that he just decided to free all of the Negro slaves. And you even have white folks who got the black president of the United States spouting this what he knows not to be true. Now, he should know it not to be true if he's read the different things that are there at his fingertips. They got him taking pictures in front of Lincoln portraits with black children, like this is something, just wonderful. But he knows the truth. He and his wife, no doubt, know the truth. That one, Lincoln did not free all slaves. He did not free black indentured servants. He did not free people in the North. He did not free all these different black people. He simply went after the Confederacy. And he actually told you that if he could stop white folks from killing each other without him freeing a single slave, he would do it. So that right there lets you know that it wasn't about no compassion for slaves then, and no compassion for the Negro. If he could have let slavery continue, he would have done it. Okay? So it is insulting for the black president, Obama, to stand in front of this portrait and try to portray Lincoln as a friend to Negroes. It is one of the most insulting things that whites have been able to get him to do during his presidency, because he knows it not to be true. He knows that Lincoln said that if you are in the prison industrial complex, you are still a slave, which means slavery did not end. It has not ended. If that addendum and that asterisk is still there, both Obama and his wife Michelle would know that that means it still exists. Okay? No. So when you're talking about freedom, you only have one freedom, one true freedom, one actual freedom, and that is the freedom of choice. We make a decision to say what we want to say. As descendants of Negro slaves trying to stop the slave trade once and for all, we say what we want to say because we have made the decision to take the consequences and deal with the consequences, good or bad. That's the decision we made. And then we exercise our freedom of choice to say what we want to say. You will think you have the freedom to go where you want to go. Okay, you wouldn't need a passport if you really had the freedom to go where you want to go. At any point, you can try, you can use your freedom of choice to try and go to these places or like anywhere you want. And you make the decision to deal with whatever consequences comes about, good or bad. But you know that there are plenty of people that can stop you from going to these places, which means you do not have the freedom to go wherever you want to go. Okay? You do not have the freedom to do whatever you want to do. You may decide that you want to walk up in the White House at 2:30 in the morning and put your feet up and go to the kitchen and get you something to eat. You may want to do that, but you do not have the freedom to do that, because there are plenty of people that will let you know that that is not a freedom that you have. Okay? Doesn't matter that you pay for it, doesn't matter that you paid a salary, none of that stuff. They're telling you, you do not have the freedom to do what you want to do. You do not have the freedom to run a stop sign. You have the freedom of choice to run a stop sign. And as long as you're willing to deal with the consequences. But you do not have the freedom to run a stop sign without any consequences. That's what a freedom is. Okay, so I know I'm hearing a lot of people talking about freedom this and freedom that. And we need to have our own black nations. And back when we had our black villages and tribes and kingdoms, we had freedom. That is not true, people. You had fairness. which is what you're looking for now. You had fairness of laws, which means that you didn't have laws that treated certain people one way and certain people the other way. That is what you're looking for. But you did not have this freedom that you talk about or that you fantasize about. Because anytime you live under a society, you are agreeing to live and abide under certain rules of conduct, rules of order, rules of being. Even nature has its rules of existing. And when you decide that you're going to be, you're born into a village, that village has certain rules of order, rules of conduct, ways that you are expected to treat people and ways that you are expected to be treated. And you agree. If you disagree with those rules, if you decide that you do not want to live under those rules, then you leave. It's as simple as that. You don't stay and say, well, I'm going to force you to change the rules for everybody else to accommodate me. That's not the way it works. Now, you got a lot of people that are doing that right now. They are trying to impose their dysfunctional behaviors, their dysfunctional situations onto everybody else. Okay? So you have a person that decides, well, I want to be able to have a dysfunctional relationship. I want to be a male and be able to tongue kiss another male in the middle of, a restaurant. Well, what these people have decided is that they do not want to live under the rule of male-female relationship. They've decided that they want to change the rule for everyone, make everyone else change the rule in order to accept their dysfunction. And that is why you are having such a battle with this homosexual situation, because it is, the homosexuals know it's unnatural, they know it, but they have decided that they're going to try and make everyone else change and accept these dysfunctions and see if they can get away with it. And the more people let them get away with it, the more they push the envelope some more. Okay? Until you are going to have a society where you're having to explain to your children why those two men are over there tongue kissing each other. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to have to explain to your children why a male and a female are over there tongue kissing each other. That's something that they themselves are taking their relationship out into the public in a dysfunctional way. They should have more respect for themselves and more respect for the children that are around. But there are a lot of different things that people think they have the freedom to do. And what it is doing, it is clearly destroying any resemblance of a civilized society, because you're accepting all kinds of craziness under this delusion of freedom. Okay? So when you're talking about freedom, we're going to deal with it on the actual basis that it is. You have the freedom of choice. And you make your choice based on your decision to accept whatever consequences comes up with it, good or bad. Okay? So I hope that helps you guys a little bit with freedom. If you decide that you want to rebuild black communities, you make a choice to rebuild black communities, and you make a choice to not accept the things that destroy the black communities in the first place. Okay? Be good or bad, you're going to deal with the consequences of that. But you have made the decision that you're willing to deal with whatever craziness white folks bring at you, or black folks that's in love with white folks bring at you. But you are going to create a black community restore a black community, restore a black nation that eliminates all of those things that you know destroy black communities, black people, and black nations. That's something that you are going to have to decide to do if you're going to fix this stuff. Okay, so I hope that helps y'all out a little bit, and I can stop hearing y'all talk about how y'all have the freedom of this. You have the right to, I hear you guys talk about you have the right to drive in your car, and police don't have the right to search you, and all, y'all have all these different rights y'all talk about. But what you have is you exercise your right to not be harassed, and you're willing to fight and take whatever consequences come along with that once you choose to exercise your right not to be harassed by these white officers and black, these Negro people working for white agencies. Okay? But that's something you choose to do. You have a freedom of choice. You have a freedom of choice whether to just take it and go ahead and go along about your business, or whether you make the choice to actually fight it and try to stop it. Okay? But it's a freedom of choice, not the freedom to drive without anybody messing with you. You don't have that freedom, or they would not be doing it. Okay? If you had that freedom, you wouldn't be dealing with the different things that are going on with them messing with you right now. Okay, so clearly they let you know on a regular basis that you do not have that freedom. Alright, so I want you to exercise your freedom of choice to fight the things that are being done to you and being done to your children and grandchildren. I want you to exercise your choice and decide what you feel the consequences may be, good or bad, and then make the choice to rebuild black communities, to have black police officers or black security forces that monitor and protect black communities. That is your choice. You have a choice whether or not you want white officers in your black community. You need to exercise your choice. You know that white police officers are doing things to your black community that make you feel like you're still on a plantation. Then you have a choice to exercise you need to exercise your choice to get those white police officers out of black communities, so that those black communities can get back together. Okay? So, y'all know how we do it. If we're still here, we're going to deal with some things, okay? All right.